Welcome back, everybody, to peopleHUB. I hope you've had a fabulous summer and you're all recharged and ready to take on the rest of this year. If I've not met you before, my name is Victoria Brown. I chair the peopleHUB monthly event, and I am also the MD of our sponsor, 1HR. By popular demand, we have the lovely Kristen with us today from Red Star Wealth. Just want to make sure I said that right then. Sorry, Kristen. She is going to be talking to us about employees' financial wellbeing. We've just been saying then it's always a very important topic, but we are coming close to the C word again. I think people obviously do think the summer's over now. They start to panic about the turning on the heating and all the extra additional costs that will be coming. So I am really excited to talk to Kristen again a little bit later on. Before we do, we are just going to have just 5 minutes today because Kristen's got a lot to go through with us, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions. So we're just going to do 5 minutes of networking. So if you've not been to this event before, what we do, we obviously do meet on a monthly basis, but we do have an opportunity just for you to get to know the other people in the peopleHUB community. So you don't have to do anything. What you'll see now is Dan is about to put you in a breakout room. Just when you see that on your screen, just click on that and it'll take you to a room with a couple of people in. Just have a little chat for 5 minutes, get to know each other, a little bit of dual networking, and then I'll bring you back into the main room. I'm going to hand over to Kristen. Okay, great. So is everyone back in the room now? Yeah?
Yeah, everyone's back now.
Yes.
Everyone's back. Okay, so before we kick off our session, just wanted to, I don't know what my phone's doing. If you can just take your phone, if you're not on it, and just take a picture of the QR code in front of you now. I'm just doing exactly the same. If you're using your phone for this session, don't worry, you can still pop a question as you would in the chat box. But this is just, we use Slido for these sessions. So the idea being here, if you've got a question that you want to ask Kristen that I've not asked, please do pop it in here. It can be anonymous. So just feel free to ask whatever you think it is. And then what we will do at the end is we will capture these questions and we will ask Kristen them. So I am going now. I'm delighted to have Kristen here again from Red Star Wealth. So rather than me try and do an introduction, because it's far better if you do, Kristen, because there's so much to talk about. But can you just provide us with a brief sort of intro about yourself and obviously Red Star?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Vic, for having me back on. So my name, as I say, is Kristen. So I own a number of companies, but I will talk about all of them as a whole. My main business is Red Star Wealth. We are a truly independent financial advisors. And I've been a finance professional since 2001. So it's my absolute passion to support people from all different backgrounds, like with their finances. And so we do that through our planning firm. But because I'm so passionate about it, 10 years ago, I launched a company to provide financial education. So we focus a lot with young people, but I am a believer that, you're never too old to learn. And so I think to encourage people to embrace increasing their financial knowledge and their financial literacy is really great for them. And it's really great for the financial services, because a client who is more engaged in the process, who understands more, actually can really understand financial planning on a much better level. So we work with, through the education, we work with some colleges, universities, and corporate clients to support them with their learners and with their staff in apprentices and things like that. And then we work with people like the Premier League and the NFL, supporting their players, again, to understand. But all of that led me then to train as a financial coach, because money is very emotive. There's a lot of emotion that gets wrapped up in our finances. And so I think to be able to support individuals to really understand their reaction to various financial situations was a really important tool for me. So we're based in Lytham St Anne's, but I have clients literally all over the country. And the work that we do in elite sport means that, like, yeah, I could be anywhere, which I love. It's great.
And you're a very, very busy person, Kristen. If I want to meet you, I have to book it in a year in advance. That's good. You're helping people. So just in terms of financial well-being, why do you think, I know this thing seems like a stupid question, but I need to ask it, why do you think it's important for employees and also for the company?
Yeah, so if you think about it, pretty much everything in our life is going to be impacted by money. Like, we might not like that as an idea, but it's absolutely true. And if we are worried particularly about money, and let's be honest, this is kind of what it comes down to, because if everything is going well and we've got all the money that we need, we don't worry about it. Although maybe we do, because then we're concerned with the responsibility. But anyway, it just impacts on our mental health and our well-being so much. But it's also a topic that is considered taboo. We don't talk about money. And all the campaigns, which I'm a great advocate for, where it's okay to be okay and we should talk and things. Yeah, great, brilliant. But in the UK, we're probably more likely to know someone's sexual orientation than we are to know what they earn. Yeah. Because we don't talk about money. So this thing that impacts our well-being, impacts our productivity, our concentration, our sleep, our relationships, is not talked about. So we need to understand that we've got to bring this conversation out into the light, start having the conversations, and as an employer to understand that the people that you're looking after whilst they are in your workplace, they're there for the vast majority of the time. And also, they don't have those regular distractions that you have at home. So, like, I've got to put the washing on, I've got to make the tea, I've got to go to the supermarket, I've got to sort the kids out, or whatever. A lot of the time when people come to work and they don't have those other things going on, that's actually almost their downtime if they're worrying. So this means that we're not doing our job, we're not being as productive as we could be, we're getting inside our own head and we're worrying and we're thinking. And as an employer, yes, we want to help and support our people, but we also want to know that the jobs are being done.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
So I hope that summarizes it.
No, and it's such a good point, particularly, I don't know what you find, but in the UK, we are very conservative in that way, aren't we? We don't like to talk about money and politics. Yeah. And our age, we don't like to talk about that either.
God, no, don't ask me my age, Victoria.
It's seen as quite offensive, actually, sometimes, isn't it? If you were to ask somebody like what they earned, and it's that sort of, we seem to be very proud. We don't like to admit if actually we are struggling.
No.
And as you say, it can manifest into so many other areas and other topics that we've explored here, on these sessions around sort of like mental health and that sort of hardship there. Yeah. But we've got a real mixed bag, as you know, because you've been here before, Kristen, on the peopleHUB community. So, some massive organisations that have got deep pockets, but we've also got some small employers that are on the session today that equally want to help their people. So what would be your advice if you had like limited resources as an employer? What can we do? What practical sort of tips can we take away from this today?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that some of these things as well, big employers actually might be in danger of missing because they seem so simple. And some of them maybe are easier to do than others. So here's my first thing. Create some sort of safe space in the workplace that people can use if they have to make those telephone calls to various organisations. Because believe it or not, whilst most companies will do everything on an app when things are going well, if you've got problems, they want you to ring them. So if you are in danger of falling into mortgage arrears, if you are going to miss payments on your credit card, if you want to discuss changing the cost of your energy supply, we can't do that on an app. It's a strange thing. We don't want to talk about money, but yet people are forced to do these things. And a lot of the time, people will have to do these things during working hours.
Yeah.
Right. So create some space somewhere at work where maybe somebody could say, I just need to make some calls. And I don't mean like, have a chat with their mate. And I don't believe that employees would use it for that. I don't think that, but I think that if we can say, here is a space that you can use, shut the door, nobody else can hear you, it means that someone isn't sat at their desk thinking, oh God, I can't wait for lunchtime because I've got to go and make this call. And then what if I'm on hold for 10 minutes? And it's distracting. Whereas if they could say, I really have to make this call to my bank or my mortgage provider, I can get into work on time, but I could take 30 minutes to go and do this. And then I've done it. And then when I come back to my desk or I'm going back into the, to the factory or whatever it is, that my mind is now on my job because I've done that task.
Yeah.
So I think that that's a great, easy win, actually, for people. Like that's easy. I think that to be considerate as an employer as to your role in somebody else's finances, because if you could just increase everybody's salary, like you'd have done it by now. Like we know this. However, if you are the sort of workplace that that gives out salary reviews, please make sure that you do them when they're expected. Because for you, a delay of a month or two might not feel like a big deal, and you might be waiting on like a contract or something like that. If that's the case, communicate it to people. Because if you can imagine someone struggling financially who's sat at home potentially with their partner saying, well, my salary review comes in a month and we'll know then the situation. Well, then what happens if it doesn't come? You kind of start going, oh, okay, now it's like, now I'm not having my salary review, and why not? And so just be upfront and honest with your staff. Like if you can't give a pay rise, then say why not. I mean, you don't have to tell them everything about the business, but you could say we're not in that position, or we're delaying salary review for 3 months because we've got a contract, or whatever it might be. I think an employer has to give out information to reassure people of what is or is not happening. Because if you're not giving a pay rise, well, the staff know you're not giving it because you've not given it. So you may as well be upfront about that so that people can then make their decisions about the rest of their finances. And I wonder sometimes whether employers, and this isn't, I don't think, anything malicious, but whether they think, well, we give a good salary. So if you've got financial problems, that's not our issue. The thing is, you don't know what somebody's home circumstances are necessarily. You have no idea. You don't know if their partner has lost their job. You don't know if their partner is a huge gambler or has other addictions that cost a lot of money. You don't know if they're supporting other family members. They could be a victim of financial abuse, which is a whole other barrel that we could open. But if you don't know every single one of your employees and everything about their financial backgrounds, you can't assume that because you're paying a good salary that they should be okay. You can't make that assumption. So be considerate and take away any sort of judgment that you might have based on what you think you are already doing. the one that I really like, and this is going to be different for different companies, but I really love the idea of having a money first aider. Okay, so this is like a little training course that I run for people. If you want to, if you've got people in your teams who want to be that point of contact, where if someone is struggling, they can go to the money first aider. So we've all got quite used to mental health first aiders. Okay, we know they're not a counsellor, we know they're not a therapist, but we know they're someone that we can trust, somebody who cares, and someone who's got all the information to signpost us where we need to be. I advocate that we should have a financial first aider in teams. And this would be somebody who has considered, you know, things like, you know, confidentiality and boundaries and things like that. But then the person that could say, okay, if it's debt, these are the charities that we think you should be signposted to. If you are struggling with gambling or gaming addiction, here is some support. You know, if you are concerned that you're ruining your credit file, what does that mean and how could you help? So some basic triage of things, and the gate opener to where else to go. Because if you search for this stuff on Google, you're going to be there forever, right? And so in your workplace, you could have some people. Now, that's going to take a bit of investment because you're going to have to maybe train these people to do that job. But then they've got it and they know it. And that's probably a great way to help a workforce. It might be the people who are already in accounts, because we already assume that like they already know. But it just could be anyone. It could be the person that everyone goes to when with their drama, right? Because already that's the person that everyone warms to. All right, you don't put the big gossip. We don't ask that person. Okay, because people need to feel safe in this conversation. And then the one thing, because like we are coming up to Christmas, right? I'm sorry everybody, but we are coming up to Christmas. And this is one of my big things, is we think as employers we're doing a nice thing if we, you know, put on a great Christmas party and all of this kind of stuff. Consider whether that is helpful to staff or not. Because if I go to a party, I'm going to make sure I've had my hair did and I'm going to have my nails done. Depending on the party, I might have to have a tan. Sorry, I'm giving a lot away about how I am as a person. You know, you're going to maybe need a taxi. You might need to pay for a babysitter. You're going to need, you know, some kinds of drinks, even if you don't drink alcohol, like, you know, that sort of thing. So as a company, you might think, well, I'm paying for the party, but are you? Or are you putting a financial burden on people? So when we're coming up to things like thank you gifts or team building, or like I say, Christmas, maybe just think, how much of a financial burden am I putting on my people by giving them this? And actually, would it be nicer, for example, to say, here is a gift voucher for Sainsbury's, Tesco, Asda, wherever, and a really lovely card that says, we really appreciate the work that you've done. You know, it's been a great year and you're a great part of the team, but we don't want to add to any potential financial burden by making you spend money on a Christmas party. And if people are friends at work and they want to socialise, they'll organise it without you. So I think those things are practical. Things that employers can do, but I think employers just need to try to change the culture that is, we do not talk about money. And that is hard, but I think by using some of these techniques and having information available in places like staff rooms, where you could say, look, you know, like just a little poster, like if you're struggling with with gambling or gaming. Like, this is a charity that we know helps. Like, even just that is starting to make a conversation feel less taboo. And if you think about how far we've come in talking about gender equality and, you know, pronouns and things like that, you couldn't have imagined doing that, you know, even 10 years ago, really. It takes time, but it is a thing of changing the culture and making that conversation feel more normal.
Absolutely. I love that. I love the money first aid. I think that's fantastic. Really do. Really, really good. And as you say, sometimes, you know, I think you take it for granted maybe that you do have, people have got a very different understanding of how to manage death, haven't they? And actually even understanding that they have got that debt in the first instance. So that's fantastic. And as you say, it's a little bit like your mental health first aider. They're just a signpost, aren't they, really? And just give you that support. And it sort of leads me on, because, you know, we've talked about sort of like your sort of safe space, and some of the things that you can do to support somebody. But what are the sort of signs? Like, what should we? I know when I did the mental health first aid course, we talked about this quite a lot around, you know, what should we be looking for? What should we be looking for that would give us some indication that maybe somebody is financially?
Some of the things are probably going to feel a lot like mental health signs, because they are that. So if somebody is quite withdrawn in themselves, and that these things would be unusual, like, so if they, you know, are a bit withdrawn and things, then just that whole thing of are you okay? But specifically around money. So if you have somebody who you would normally see come into work, go to, you know, Tesco, McDonald's, local cafe, whatever it is, for lunch, or they would normally be coming in, you know, with a Costa and so on, and that stops. That, like, that whole engaging with what I would class as the extra spending, like, that all comes down. So people might be, and don't get me wrong, they might just be bringing in their lunch and stuff because it's more practical and things, but you can sort of tell with habits that change around that. If somebody is normally the person that's saying that they are doing things at the weekend, and they are, you know, they usually always go, you know, we'll have a holiday organized, and you find that that conversation isn't happening, together with this idea that they're not saying, I've stopped going to Costa because I'm on a health kick, but they don't say why they're not going. They're just not going. They're just not doing holidays. People sometimes will have conversations about, you know, things are expensive, and make those comments. And we all do. God, you know, the electric's really expensive. But when somebody is struggling with it, actually those comments stop, and they become quite withdrawn with it. So it's the outward signs that somebody is trying to conserve their funds. The idea that they do take phone calls, or they're getting phone calls at work, and that seems to distress them. Because if somebody is chasing debt, for example, they'll ring and they'll ring and they'll ring. And you know, like, I mean, like, just full disclosure, when I got divorced, I was in £30,000 of unsecured debt. People rang me like 2 or 3 times a day. And I knew what the phone call was going to be about. And it is quite distressing. And you can't hide that. Like, you can't hide those sorts of feelings. So I think that it's about looking after your team, noticing when they change, and things that they're no longer doing. They won't come out for drinks, or they won't do a social event. They stop doing social things for themselves, because those are the easiest things to cut out, you know. And together with, like I say, things like phone calls and stuff that appear to make them distressed. And that for me would be an indicator. And I would be saying, just have a word, like, you know, come into my office or come into, like, I see that you were really distressed by that phone call. Is there something that we could help with that? You know, and it's that kind of approach. Like, again, I think it's a very British thing that it's like you see someone crying and you run for the hills, like, oh, they're crying. So, but actually, if one of your people was really distressed, go and ask them why. And it might not be about money. You know, their cat might have died. We can still give them some support. But if their cat had died, they'd probably say, I'm absolutely devastated. My cat has died. But if they are, you know, 6 times over their overdraft limit, they're not going to tell you until you ask, until you show that you are open to that conversation without judgment on why, like don't say, oh, why? Like, don't use the word why. And it's the most judgy word. But you can approach people and say, like, I see that you're upset. You look worried. I've noticed that you're not planning a holiday. Like, is there something? And like I say, it might just be, like, you know, my mum's really ill and we can't leave her at the moment. Fine. But I think to start those conversations in a gentle, non-judgmental way is about changing the culture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as you said before, that point that you made around obviously companies can't, they can't just go to the money tree and give people all a big sort of salary increase. And that's not necessarily the fix. You know, some people are just very poor managing their finances, aren't they? So no matter how much they earn, they're going to spend it anyway. There are, you'll know better than I will, but like those sorts of stats around, as soon as you make that increase, it's sort of forgotten within a couple of months, really, and it's spent and it doesn't feel any different. So I should say, if you can change that culture, and I think as you sort of money bears data is fantastic sort of signposting, and that leads me to sort of resources as well, because obviously I'm assuming that you do this on your course as well. It's like what sort of resources should you talk about communication, so I'm assuming we can, you know, put posters up and things like that, and but what can we be sort of offering? What's out there, what's available to resource wise for us as employers?
So the things that are made available, in my opinion, the things that are made available by charities are great resources. So I would because obviously I do this, right? So and I'm going to get to that in a minute. So yes, there are companies available that you can buy in their services. Like, I get that. But if you weren't in that position, then what I would do is think about, so Step Change, for example, is a charity that helps people with debt and understanding debt and so on and so forth. So you might go onto their website, find some resources that might work for your people. Now, I also know that there are other charities that deal with debt, and you as an organisation, you might have somebody who volunteers for them, or I mean, they might be your client, you know, so maybe look at your own community first, but think which charities are going to be able to give us some resources to use, but then also that where we can signpost people. There are charities available that support people if they are struggling with gambling or with gaming. I'm happy to recommend some of those, because I think some of the ones that are supported by the gambling industry, you might feel is a conflict of interest, but there are some that are a bit independent of that. But charities that provide financial support, like I say, for debt and things like that, are great. There is a website that is operated by the UK government. Now then, the money and pension service. Now, this has got like, oh God, just so much information on it. And which is great. But you've got to know what you're asking it. So it's almost like a search engine of information about financial, financial things. But you've almost got to know the question you're asking to get the right information. But if, for example, you had, you suspected there was a lot of people in your organization who were looking towards retirement, for example, you might think, okay, I'm going to go onto there and see what sort of resources are available that people should be considering in the run up to retirement. For me, the best thing is to engage with a company who is expert at this. But I'm bound to say that, aren't I? Because I am that expert. But I would say if the company has not got the resources to do this at the moment, then charities are there's a lot of them, really good ones, and the money and pension service is good for just information, what are these things, etc. And also, if you are a company that already engages with a financial services provider, probably for your pension scheme, okay, go and ask them. Ask them what else can they provide for you. Would they come in and do, because I look after a lot of corporate clients and I run their pension scheme for them. I was with one yesterday. We did pension clinics. And I do this with all of my clients. So I'll make myself available to talk about various things. So if you're paying a company to run your pension scheme, well, what can they talk to your staff about? Can you get them to come in? Because you pay them anyway. So what services can they offer to you? And hopefully they're a great advisor and they've got a really good rapport with your team anyway. So hearing from them is going to feel like, oh, this, like with my people, that's Kristen. They've seen me hundreds of times. So me coming in and saying to them, listen, I've got something new I want to speak about. It might be budgeting or managing debt or whatever. They're open to it because they know who I am.
And when we met that time when we were both in the same place but in different parts, and we didn't realise that one, you were talking to me about a client of yours that had engaged you to sort of like when you look at performance review, but actually to do those sessions with their people, which I thought was really impressive because it was only, a relatively small employer as well, but they'd invested, which when you say talking about changing the culture, what better way to demonstrate that change? So do you want to just tell everyone a little bit about that, Kristen? Because I thought that was quite powerful what they did.
So was this where we spoke with each member of staff about what their goals and ambitions were?
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought that was the one that we meant. Yeah. So this company is really focused on growth for themselves as a business. But they recognize that in order for them as directors to grow this business, the team needs to help them. And so they were really interested in the team being able to set their own financial goals and ambitions. And the growth of the company would mean higher salaries, and therefore that would mean that people achieve their financial goals. So yeah, we did some workshops with them, understanding everybody's personality when it comes to money, how they interact with it, looking specifically at any challenges, and then setting some financial goals with them. And if anybody does want to find me on LinkedIn, one of the members of staff actually, it was really lovely. When we did the one-to-one a couple of months later, she said, "You've completely changed my life." And she was crying. She was like, because now I see what was holding me back with money and this cycle of getting in debt, paying it off, getting in debt, paying it off. And she said, and I feel like I've broken that. So yeah, I think as an employer, if you are forward thinking, literally the sky is the limit of what you can provide. And it is just thinking outside the box a little bit of saying what will assist the company. Because in that situation, everybody is so motivated and understands that their employer believes in them so much that they'll walk over hot coals for that company.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely really believe in that. And what would you like everyone to take away from I mean, obviously I've wrote notes, I've taken a lot away from this session, but what would you like to sort of people to take away from today?
Yeah, so as employers, we've got to lead from the front. It's up for us to start to change this culture and believe in it, believe in what you are doing. Putting up a few posters in the staff room is not going to mean that next week everyone is talking about it. Like, it's going to take time, because we're making society changes. Like, we don't talk about money, but if you as a business start to try to change this culture within your company, just be consistent and keep going with it and lead from the front and be that person willing to have that conversation, even if it feels icky for you, right? Because it still might. like it still might feel weird for you as a business owner to have that culture. And just don't assume you understand anybody's financial background or situation, because you might get it wrong. So be open-minded and don't judge people. Like, finance is hard, managing money is hard. Someone might have been ill, they could have been divorced, you don't know. So let's approach it with a lot of humanity.
Yeah, perfect. Well, I am conscious of time, but it's been fantastic, because I've just sort of picked up so many practical points. I'm sure that people have as well. But if there are any, I know there was a couple of questions on Slido. What we'll do is, if it's okay, I'll forward them on to you, Kristen. If you want to answer them, I can forward that on. And if you wouldn't mind as well, just sharing some of those charity links, that'd be really helpful, if that's okay.
Certainly.
Now, I've got Kristen's details here, as she mentioned. She's on LinkedIn as well. We are going to share, take a picture of this by all means, but we are going to share that information with you. And if you are interested in any of those training courses, or to speak to Kristen yourself, we will share that information so that you can. But thank you so much. I'm booking for next year, same time, same place. I hope you've enjoyed the session today. If you're not a member of our peopleHUB community, here on the screen now is our LinkedIn and Facebook. We do have 2 closed groups as well. So, we are trying to encourage people to get to know each other outside of these monthly sessions as well, and share best practice so that we can all obviously disseminate that into our businesses. Our next session is going to be in October, scary enough. Dan, could you just move it to the next screen, please? So our next session is going to be workplace health and safety. So just knowing those basics in an organisation. We do have Adam, who is a health and safety consultant, that will be sharing his knowledge and just those things that maybe you need to be aware of if you're not within your organisation. So again, there is the QR code to join. We will send you the link for that, and it will be at 9:15 on Zoom, as always. So thank you again so much. It's lovely to see you all, and I look forward to seeing you next month.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kristen.
Bye.